For today, we're playing The Last of Us Part 1 and with the ROG ally. And we're starting it off at 1080p at a mix of medium and low settings. And here we are with that. There we go. And for FSR, I'm using the balance preset. Let's go up here real quick. There we go. Now as you guys can see, up top it says that I'm using 2 gigs of VRAM, but in the ASUS settings, I'm using 6 gigs, as you can see right here. And right into the game. We're playing in chapter 3. This is where I test the game at normally, and it is quite intensive. So far I'm sitting in the low to mid 30s, but in a second it will fall down far more than this. I have to go and find this bin over here, pick it up, and jump over. And yeah, so far the GPU is not maxed out, surprisingly, but in a second it might be. Let's take a look. Right here, we drop down, look over, and there we go. GPU is now fully maxed out, and FPS is still sitting in the low to mid 30s. For our VRAM, I'm using up 5 gigs. Again, we have 6 in total for this one, so we're still chilling there. But FPS wise, we are falling below 30 here, as low as 27. But we are playing at 1080p of course, so lowering the resolution here should give us a stable 30 at all times. For the graphics, it looks fantastic, at least on the built-in screen. If you're playing on a TV or a bigger screen, it's kind of average to be honest. It's not the sharpest or the best looking game out there, but it's alright. But again, once more, on the built-in screen, it looks amazing. Super sharp, it looks great. Right here, the game is stuttering quite a bit. It's not the smoothest. I can't even run. What's the run button? I've forgotten. Oh, there we go. It's L1. And going right here, FPS falls down into the low 20s for a second and back up into the 30s. Yeah, the stutters are pretty aggressive here. It's not the smoothest gameplay. Let's keep going over here. We've got to go right and jump over. The game is very stuttery here, guys. Super choppy. So yeah, although we can get 30 FPS for the most part, it can also fall down into the low to mid 20s in those heavier scenes. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and back out and lower the settings to the low preset, try it again, and see if we can do much better than this. Alright, back in here in the graphics settings, let's go ahead and bring this down to low. Apply it. Now playing at the very low settings isn't really ideal. The game looks pretty bad. It's very blurry, and for me, it's just not that good. So far I can feel some stutters, if I'm being honest here. It isn't the smoothest. I think like an FPS cap of 30 here is the move. And again right here, still sitting in the low 30s and falling into the 20s for a split second. It's definitely doing better than before. It fell into, right here again though. It does stutter. But overall it is far more stable here. It held the 30s for much longer. CPU is up there as well, 70% usage on the CPU and around 80 to 90% on the GPU. So up here beforehand, it fell down into the low 30s. I said the low 30s, but I meant the low 20s. And the game was extremely stuttery. Let's try it again. The game is definitely stuttering here. Not as bad as before, of course. A bit better. There we go. Far better. We're actually holding the 30s here now. It does fall down to the high 20s for a second or two, but again, far better than before, where it fell down into the low 20s, like around 21 FPS pretty much. And now with frames inactive, we're sitting in the high 50s. This is amazing. It does feel far more fluid, to be honest, and trying to aim, not too bad. The stutters are still here though, unfortunately. Hey, put your hands up. Oh, you just killed your boy. So if your main concern is the frame rate, enable frame gen. The game feels fine, it looks great, and you double your frame rate pretty much. So yeah, that is the move for that. Let's pause it here guys, back out, play at 900p, 30 watts, same settings, and try it again. Alright, 900p, same settings, no FSR. So far, like always, in the 30s. At this point, it looks far better in my opinion on the bigger screen. And on the ally screen, it looks fine, just like before. FPS though, down into the low 20s for a second and back up into the high 20s. So FSR would be handy right here. Yeah, it isn't a stable 30, unfortunately. Low to mid 20s in this section. And the stutters, again, just quite aggressive. Let's reset it here, guys, because already the game is pretty unplayable, I would say. It is just far too choppy and the FPS falls down far too much. Let's reset. I'll enable FSR 3 with frame gen, and we can try it again. With frame gen active, we're now sitting in the 60s. That is far better. And the game does feel smoother as well. The stutters, unfortunately, won't go away, at least for now. But again, I think with an FPS cap, it might do a lot better. And right here, we're down into the mid 50s. It's feeling pretty okay so far, not too bad. In the same section, we had around 20 FPS here, and the game was stuttering quite heavily. Right here. Yeah, the game is stuttering quite heavily again. Okay, let's back out, try 15 watts, and see if FSR 3 can save that as well. And right here, we're down into the low to mid 50s from the high 60s. So quite a decrease. Might do pretty poorly in the next section. Let's have a look. And down into the 40s we go. It's the low 40s now. It's not too bad, to be honest. The game isn't stuttering yet. Yeah, it feels fine, to be honest. It's not too bad, I would say. So if you're playing portably, this is not too bad at all. And lastly, 720p, 15 watts, no FSR. Let's go again. And already, the GPU is not fully maxed out, sitting at 85% usage. This is not a good sign. I mean, for the next section though, it will do better, because that bottleneck at 900p was the GPU. So having the extra headroom on the GPU should give us a more stable frame rate. And no, it's still falling into the mid to high 20s. The low 20s even. And lastly, using frame gen FSR 3, let's see how we go. But this shouldn't be too far off from 900p. So I think for the Ally, the sweet spot is 900p and using FSR 3 with frame gen active. If you want to use frame gen, then use an FPS cap of 30 probably, ideally. And it should be far more stable and the stuttering should calm down far more. With frame gen active, maybe an FPS cap of 50. That's the lowest I've seen it hit. But for the most part, it can hold 60 with frame gen. So it's really up to you. This was honestly surprising. I thought the Ally would do a lot better than this, but honestly the performance is a bit inconsistent. It does better than the Steam Deck, of course. The Steam Deck can get 30 FPS for the most part with FSR active at 800p, but the Ally can play at a higher resolution and get 30 FPS that way and have headroom on the GPU as well on top. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. That is The Last of Us Part 1 on the ROG Ally. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Next video. See you guys then.